Oh my lord.
Firstly, a big shout out to my good friends at Blue Moon Cycle of Norcross, especially Lisa for making this ride possible. John Landstrom owns Blue Moon, which first started in his basement about 35 years ago, and he joined me on the ride today. The current shop's about 15,000 square foot and it's still located in Norcross. Over the years it's owned franchises for Moto Guzzi, BMW, MV, and now it sells new Ural and Zero motorcycles as well as servicing vintage BMWs. By their own admission, they are now more of a motorcycle shop again and less of a dealership, which makes them all the more welcoming. And they say we've been around 30 years and we're still going strong. The past is the future for Blue Moon Cycle.
So a bit of a scoop on the all new 2019 Zero ZERO S, I think I've got that right. And this is basically the biggest, baddest, coolest EV bike available at present. Never ridden an electric bike before, and I can tell you it's instantly intuitive. A little bit strange having no clutch lever just for a second or so, and then it's fine. Pulling away is incredibly smooth. There's no real there's no jerkiness. Ride quality is very smooth on this bike. Has fully adjustable Showa suspension, so it's produced by Honda, and it's fully adjustable for preload, rebound and compression. Has riding modes obviously for rain and street and sport, and that'll adjust the traction control levels. Unlike other EV vehicles including Zero, most other EVs do not have any form of traction control, but this does, and that's very much needed when you've got 100% torque at 0 revs. And this bike has it's in eco mode at the moment. It has a very clean and firm pickup. But at low revs, you know, around these little roundabouts and stuff, it's effortless. Having no clutch, zero problem. Feels very nice immediately when you stop, because you have no clutch lever. And yeah, this thing's got some torque, 140 torques. We're only in kind of castration mode, eco mode there, and it goes. There's no worry about performance, I think, with these electric bikes. Got John up ahead. He owns Blue Moon Cycles in Norcross, and they are Ural and vintage BMW and Zero dealers. Really nice guy, does a lot of work for the bike scene. It's been around since like the 80s. Very good guy. I sometimes catch him in his Ural with his trusty dog sat in the sidecar. Right, just changed the mode to street, traction to street. It's indicating 99% full and 117 mile per hour, 117 mile range at present. I know this bike has a theoretical top speed of about 125 miles an hour. I've hit the mode button a couple of times thinking it was a turn signal, which is just below, but I think you soon get used to that. The ride quality is absolutely excellent actually. The bike feels a little bit heavy at standstill, but it feels very light on the move. The seat, which doesn't look that thin in the showroom or when you sit on it, feels actually very comfortable. I think you could do decent miles on this, certainly the full range of the tank. So ride quality is very good, considering it's fully adjustable as well. A few tweaks, you'd really be able to get it quite sublime. But I'm quite a heavy guy, and for me it works very well. I think for a lighter guy you might need to tweak it a little bit softer, but for me it's very good. I like the low speed manners of this not having a clutch. It actually is really good having the auto feature. It's very nice. So I'm going to hang a right here. So this is a great test. This is absolute walking pace, you know, sort of thing you'd be feathering the clutch forever. And actually on this, you kind of, before you ride an EV, you kind of think it would be a bit challenging, but it's really very good.
So you want to switch to sport mode?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, we're good. Oh my lord. That has got some takeoff. Oh yeah. Wow. If that acceleration is the future, yeah, sign me up for some of that. That's pretty impressive. It really feels like, you know, banging it down a couple of gears on a big 1200 and wringing its neck out, but of course it doesn't feel like you're trying to kill the thing. There's no screaming, just smooth thrust and a little bit of a kind of jet engine-ish kind of noise as it takes off, and then the wind noise eventually takes over the sound of that. But impressive. Very addictive, actually. Really very, very nice. Super smooth, very comfortable, effortless torque. Nearly went for a gear then to knock it down a gear. You don't have to worry. So this is a little bit like moving from a manual box to a DCT in the car. If it's the first time you've had an auto. It's not for everyone, but the vast majority of people will soon adopt it as you know, so convenient and more enjoyable and more practical, particularly when you get stuck in traffic and, you know, stop-start traffic and stuff. That I can see this is definitely the future, and it bodes well for bikes like Honda's Africa Twin DCT or the Goldwing DCT, for instance. But the electric propulsion is definitely a bit of a game changer. Opens your eyes a little bit as to the potential performance of on tap from EV vehicles. I have to say it's a little bit more impressive than I was expecting. I've driven electric cars now like Tesla and stuff, but it's, I think, even more impressive with the bikes, to be honest, just because of that. You know, the performance is so usable on a bike, obviously, and compared with the car, it's a lot lighter. And that was a really nice ride. Give me food for thought about EV bikes in general, and particularly this Zero model. It's really very impressive.
So let's look at the specs. The base model is 18,995. The premium model chimes in at 20,995, and that gets you a fly screen, heated grips and aluminium bar ends, which seems a little saucy for a 2K upsell. If you want a 6K kilowatt rapid charge on top of that, price is then pushed up to $23,295. For your extra $2,300, you get to drop the time required from flat to a 95% charge from 2 hours down to 1 hour with the standard level 2 charging system, which requires a 220/240 outlet, similar to a utility room socket if you're based in the US. I would say the rapid charger is only for those using the bike as their only form of transport. Claim range is impressive at up to 200 miles, but this is deceptive. That range is only available with the optional power pack, and the price and weight of which is not known, as it will not be available until later this year. Additionally, range has many dependencies, from the ambient and battery temperatures to the number of stops made, to the road and weather conditions, to the roads ridden, the speeds ridden at, and the velocity at which you're twisting the throttle. With all that said, let's assume the range is a genuine 200 miles with the forthcoming power pack. But of course those miles will be city riding only, and it will be a best case scenario. City range without it will be around 160 miles. A combined range will be around 110 miles. I believe the bike I rode, which was a premium model without the unavailable as yet power pack, was indicating 99% charged and a theoretical 119 mile range. I would deduce from that a safe all-round use range of maybe 100 miles. So if you only use it for commuting purposes, you don't have to travel at freeway speeds, you maybe only travel 10 miles to work, say, you may only need to charge it up once a week. The $4,300 saved by going for the base model over the rapid charge premium variant seems a logically better deal. However, residual values in premium models often help offset this to maybe 50% of that hike. Whatever the spec, it's not an inexpensive bike when compared to mainstream gas-powered machines with similar performance. However, its fit, finish and spec mark it out as a premium machine. And it looks stupendous value against the $30k Harley-Davidson Livewire, which some folk on the interwebs are branding as the #deadwire. So let's look at some of the pros of owning this machine. It draws a crowd like a DeLorean in Back to the Future. You'll never have to visit a gas station again. 140 torques never gets old. It's quiet, smooth and refined. You never knew how antique clutch levers felt. Start each day with a full tank of Go. Great ride quality like a well set up premium machine. Braking performance is reassuring. Kevlar belt drives transmit power better than shaft drive and are cleaner and less to maintain than a chain. No engine heat when stopped at the lights. Trickle through traffic jams with better low speed control. Silent speeding avoids drawing attention to yourself. What's the appeal of something that requires expensive gas each ride and periodically will need expensive oil, valves, timing belt adjustments, spark plugs, filters, coolants, etc. An EV bike has none of those things. Its main costs are just tyres and brake pads, fluids, plus periodic change of the final drive Kevlar belt. And let's look at some of the challenges it faces for potential buyers such as myself to consider. Firstly, pioneering and overcoming naysayers. Peer comments like zero is the amount of interest I have in them. The marketing range never really equates to real world usage. Charging may well be fast, but when out for the day you want to stop where you want to stop and for as long as you want to stop. The ability to fast charge at home solves a problem that doesn't exist for most riders who are comfortable with an overnight charge if it then got them a 300 mile all-day riding range. It may be good value for money compared with the dead-in-the-water Harley-Davidson Livewire, but it's still a premium brand price that has to compete against known quantities. Residual values are a bit of a lottery until EV bikes become mainstream or begin to outsell their gas equivalents. Amazing fuel economy of up to the equivalent of 230 miles per gallon claimed and very little to no maintenance seems like it will pay for itself in no time. But the break-even point is much further down the road than the lies, damn lies and statistics that are branded about would have you believe. So let's just have a look at the numbers on that particular front. Okay, so I just threw some numbers together to give me an idea of how cost effective it might be to move to an EV vehicle And the only thing I can really compare it against fairly well at the moment is my existing vehicle, a GSA, which is not for sale. But if you were to build one online, excluding panniers and all that jazz, for the premium vehicle with HP colours, you're looking at about 25.5 grand. And whether the residual is better or worse than this, I've just said for year 1 it's 20% depreciation, year 2 15, year 3 10, and the residual value will be about 16,600 after the 3 years, based on an 18,000 mile mileage. So that gives you depreciation of nearly $9,000. On top of that, you have maintenance. First service is typically about $350, a 6K around 700. This obviously excludes tyres and anything else you might need. And the 3-year one is a valve check, I believe, and will be a little bit more expensive. So overall, the 3-year cost for depreciation and maintenance and fuel, based on the average price of premium fuel in Georgia right now, will equate to nearly $12,500 over those 3 years. Now moving to compare it against the ZERO SRF, this has a similar MSRP if you go for the premium with the fast charger, and based on the same depreciation values, percentages, we don't know whether they're going to be better or worse really at present, but let's say they're the same. You're looking at residual of around 15,000, and that's depreciation of about 8k. Now we know there's going to be some maintenance because ultimately at some point it's going to need a new belt drive, probably at 18k, and there will be tyres and brake fluids and the like, but otherwise pretty much zero main. But let's say there's no charge for the 3 years. That would give you a 3-year cost of 8,400, based on again a theoretical 230 mile per gallon equivalent, which we know is going to be a best case city scenario, no doubt. So ultimately, to the dollar, in actual fact, in this instance, we're looking at about a 4k difference over the 3 years, or about 1,300 a year. Now, if you're spending 25 grand on a bike, probably 1,300 a year is not going to be a deal breaker for you. You're going to get the bike that you really want, obviously. Finally, let's look at something that is much more affordable in terms of its MSRP, but has very similar performance. The Yamaha MT-10, which has the R1 engine, so it obviously has plenty of go. Now that retails at around 13k, and the depreciation on that will give you about 4.5 grand depreciation over the 3 years. Maintenance will obviously fall between the premium BMW and the lower mate Zero, with the fuel costs being I've just said the same, which is based on like 42 miles to the gallon. So 3 year over the 3 years basically is going to be about 5.2 cheaper to own than the BMW, but interestingly it's going to obviously save you about $400 also over the Zero, and the Zero costs 10 grand more to begin with. So it's kind of food for thought. They're not necessarily the logical bikes to hold up against it, but I wanted to show something that was a premium brand of a similar value, and also a better value proposition that has very similar performance. Now the MT-10 might be better off placed up against the ZXF, the kind of more of the more affordable Zero models, but that's not what we're comparing here today. We're comparing the premium model, the SRF, and this is just how the figures pan out. I'm not saying they're hard and fast. You may agree with them, may not agree with them. So my conclusion is, if you want to travel more than 100 miles without range anxiety, if you think bikes costing more than 10,000 are for rich fools, negative thoughts of those who've never experienced an EV trouble you, you find the sounds of bits of metal smashing together soothes you, silent running bikes without clutch levers are the devil incarnate, then the Zero SRF and EV vehicles in general are just not for you. But if you want 100% of linear monster torque from 0 revs, if you think clutch levers and gear levers are quaint and vintage antiques, if your journeys never travel 100 miles or further, you're doing quite alright financially, thank you very much. and you're an early adopter who likes shiny bright new things, then the ZERO SRF or EV vehicles just might be for you. So will I buy one? Well, for now, for this specific EV, it's a no, but definitely not a never. My caveats are that circa 20k is a lot of money for a commuter. I don't see a clear value proposition over 3 years against similar priced or similar performing machines, and I enjoyed the ride so much that I wanted to ride it over long distances, which means for me a 300-mile real world range would really grab my attention. But that may be 3 to 5 years away, we'll just have to see. But what I can say is that my next bike will almost certainly have no clutch or foot levers, so DCT or EV. And with EV bikes now having effectively everything right except range, it won't be too long before I have an EV bike in my stable, I am sure. Once again, thank you to Lisa and John at Blue Moon Cycles for making this video possible. They are genuinely good people who have helped out the family of a late friend with an extensive Ducati collection, for instance. And if you are interested in perhaps a vintage BMW, a Ural and sidecar, or one of the new fandangled zero emission machines, get yourself down there to Norcross. You won't find a friendlier welcome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate all your feedback and support for the Ride On channel. I hope you're already a Ride On subscriber, but if not, please subscribe straight away. And last but not least, ride often, ride carefully, ride on.